I think when we first started it, it started as a very small idea with Harry and I.
Royal watchers across the world are stunned as shocking news emerges from behind palace walls. A story that many never thought would see the light of day has now unfolded in dramatic fashion, and it is shaking the very core of the monarchy. Kate Middleton, beloved by millions and admired for her grace, found herself at the center of a heartbreaking scene that has left the nation speechless. What began as whispers of tension soon spiraled into an explosive moment that no one could have predicted. It all came crashing down when an unexpected confrontation between Kate and Queen Camilla reached boiling point. What was once a subtle rivalry suddenly became a public storm, and in that storm, the Princess of Wales collapsed in front of stunned witnesses. The world is now asking what truly happened, and why Prince William has finally chosen this moment to break his silence after years of keeping family battles private. His words are raw, his emotions are unfiltered, and his revelations changed everything we thought we knew. Stay with us as we uncover the hidden truths, the shocking attack, the collapse, and the confession that will forever reshape the future of the royal family. The gathering storm. The grandeur of royal life often dazzles the public, but behind the polished smiles and carefully chosen words lies a world of unspoken tensions and calculated moves. As preparations began for a high-profile royal event, the palace became a hive of orchestrated activity. Staff hurried through the long corridors with clipboards in hand, florists arranged blossoms imported from across Europe, and security details quietly tightened their watch. Every gesture was designed to project unity, tradition, and grace. Yet beneath the gilded surface, unease was beginning to spread like a shadow across the palace walls. Kate Middleton carried herself with quiet dignity, admired worldwide for her poise and relatability. She had mastered the art of appearing serene even under relentless scrutiny, yet those closest to her noticed the faint shadows beneath her eyes. Her smile never faltered in public, but the strain of endless duties was unmistakable to those who knew her best. She bore the weight of expectation daily, aware that every glance, every word, and every gesture would be captured and studied. To the world, she was elegance personified, but within her heart she carried the heavy silence of exhaustion. Camilla, now firmly established as queen, stepped forward with the confidence of someone who believed she had endured the worst storms and prevailed. Her public words were polished and rehearsed, her smile gracious and deliberate, her posture commanding. Yet in private, her tone revealed sharper edges. She did not merely see Kate as the younger face of the monarchy. She saw her as a rival, a figure whose influence and popularity threatened to overshadow her own hard-fought legacy. Their exchanges and meetings were subtle, but sparks lingered in the silences that followed, and glances across ornate tables carried meanings far beyond surface politeness. Courtiers and advisors noticed the tension, though none dared to speak of it openly. Some saw Kate as the monarchy's future, capable of restoring faith in an institution often criticized as outdated. Others aligned themselves quietly with Camilla, believing her seniority and resilience made her the rightful anchor of tradition. The division was unspoken but unmistakable, and it hung in the atmosphere as tangibly as the glittering chandeliers overhead. At the center stood William, balancing his role as heir with his instinct as a husband and father. He noticed Kate's tired posture after long engagements, and he noticed the sharper tones Camilla employed in family discussions. His instinct urged him to defend his wife, but his position demanded restraint. For now, he chose silence, believing it safer to shield both sides from confrontation. Yet he knew deep within that storms never pass without leaving scars. Kate immersed herself in preparations, ensuring every detail of the event reflected dignity and warmth. Behind her polished smile was a quiet prayer for peace, a hope that the gathering storm would dissipate before it broke. Camilla rehearsed her own words with equal determination, intent on reminding all that she wore the crown. The palace sparkled, yet the silence was heavy. It was the calm before thunder, the stillness before lightning split the sky. The storm was gathering. Whispers in the palace. The grand halls of the palace echoed with footsteps, polished laughter, and the routines of ceremony. Yet beneath the chandeliers and golden curtains, An invisible storm brewed. The monarchy thrived on discretion, but rumors had a way of slipping through even the most guarded doors. Courtiers exchanged hushed words about disagreements over tradition, titles, and influence, each whisper feeding the tension that lay hidden beneath polished smiles. Kate Middleton found herself at the center of these quiet conversations, though she never sought the attention. Her grace had long been her shield, her ability to remain calm under scrutiny, making her beloved worldwide. To the cameras she appeared flawless, her smile radiant, her posture steady. Yet those closest to her noticed the faint shadows beneath her eyes and the weariness in her steps. The constant demands of royal duty, endless comparisons, and the unspoken expectation to be perfect weighed heavily upon her. Still, she pressed forward, wearing her composure like armor, even as her spirit trembled in silence. Camilla, by contrast, had weathered storms of criticism for decades and now sat firmly on the throne as queen. To many, she was a survivor, a guardian of tradition, someone who had endured scorn and emerged with authority. Yet that authority bred a sharpened vigilance. She could not ignore the glowing admiration directed toward Kate, nor the headlines praising her warmth and relatability. Camilla sensed the tide of affection leaning ever more heavily toward her daughter-in-law, and in her private moments the thought unsettled her deeply. What had once been a rivalry buried beneath layers of ceremony now edged closer to the surface with every passing day. In meetings, Camilla began asserting herself more openly. She raised her voice about matters of precedence, reminding advisors that hierarchy must never bow to modern pressure. Her words, though elegant, often carried an edge sharp enough to wound. Kate felt the sting of those remarks, subtle but unmistakable, yet she responded with calm diplomacy. To outsiders, the exchanges seemed harmless, but to Kate, they carried an undertone of challenge, reminders that power within the palace was fiercely guarded. Behind the scenes, whispers grew louder. Some claimed the dispute stemmed from questions of titles for younger royals. Others suggested tension over charitable patronages or the spotlight of public appearances. Each minor decision became fodder for speculation. Advisors argued quietly over who held greater influence with the king, Camilla with her seasoned perspective or Kate with her fresh vision for the monarchy's future. Truth was difficult to separate from rumor, yet the gossip alone was enough to keep the palace humming with unease. Kate worked tirelessly, devoting long hours to speeches, schedules, and appearances. Each demand required perfection. In the privacy of her chambers, however, exhaustion seeped into her bones. She longed for a pause, a breath away from relentless expectation, but she knew that luxury did not exist for her. Instead, she fixed her crown, straightened her back, and stepped once more into the spotlight with quiet resolve. Camilla continued to sharpen her words in private, wielding them like a seasoned strategist. Outsiders heard only polished sentences, but Kate heard the challenge hidden within. With each remark, she grew more unsettled, caught between honoring duty and defending her place in a world where every move was measured. As night fell and the palace quieted, whispers grew louder in the silence. Staff traded rumors in hushed tones, advisors lingered in corners with lowered voices, and even family members exchanged cautious glances. It was no longer just a private matter. The tension had become a shadow stretching across the monarchy itself. The palace walls, though centuries old, could not contain what was unfolding. The whispers were soft now, but soon they would roar. The heated exchange. The palace was a world of order, ceremony, and control. To the public, it seemed unshakable, a fortress of tradition. Yet behind locked doors, moments arose that could fracture its polished image. One such moment unfolded during a private meeting meant to finalize details for the royal event. At first, the atmosphere was formal. Papers spread across an ornate table, advisors discussing schedules. Kate entered with her familiar poise, while Camilla sat already in place, her presence commanding the room. The conversation began harmlessly, centered on seating charts and speeches. Yet beneath the polite tones lay a simmering contest of influence. Camilla had grown frustrated by Kate's popularity, frustrated that her every appearance became a headline. Camilla had fought decades to be accepted, and she now felt her authority slipping into her daughter-in-law's hands. When advisors briefly stepped out, she leaned forward and allowed her true thoughts to surface. Her voice was calm but cold, each word a dagger wrapped in velvet. She reminded Kate of her place, insisting hierarchy and tradition must never be overshadowed by public sentiment. Titles and privileges, she said, were earned through endurance, not given freely on a wave of sympathy. Kate sat in silence, carefully weighing her response. She knew defiance would ignite a fire, yet submission would only invite more attacks. When Kate finally spoke, her words were steady though soft. She emphasized unity, humility, and the importance of adapting to modern expectations while still honoring history. Her tone carried the sincerity that had made her beloved, but beneath it was quiet firmness. Camilla, however, remained unmoved. Her reply was sharp, laced with veiled threats. Popularity fades, she hinted, and influence within the family could be dismantled. The air thickened. Kate tried to maintain composure, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on her stepmother-in-law. Inside, her heart pounded with unease. Camilla leaned closer, lowering her voice but raising the weight of her words. Each phrase was a challenge, daring Kate to push back. Neither realized William had arrived early for his own meeting. Standing in the hallway outside, he caught fragments through the partly open door. He heard Camilla's sharpness, her attempts to assert dominance. He heard Kate's calm but strained answers, her refusal to bow without losing her dignity. Each exchange struck him like a blow. His instinct urged him to walk in, to shield his wife, yet protocol warned against scandal. To confront Camilla openly would fracture the family further. He froze, torn between the husband and the heir. One side demanded protection, the other demanded restraint. He pressed his hand against the wall, his heart racing as the voices inside rose and fell. When advisors returned, the confrontation ended abruptly. Camilla straightened her notes, composure restored. Kate adjusted her posture, her smile ready though her eyes betrayed a storm. The meeting resumed as though nothing had occurred, but the unspoken words lingered like smoke. William stepped back into shadow, his mind unsettled. Silence had shielded him before, but he knew it could not shield Kate forever. The collapse. The day of the grand event arrived wrapped in all the splendor the monarchy could muster. The palace gates stood open as dignitaries arrived, dressed in their finest. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, and the air shimmered with anticipation. Flowers lined the grand entrance, jewels glittered beneath chandeliers, and musicians prepared to fill the hall with regal notes. On the surface, everything was perfect, yet beneath the polish, cracks from the earlier confrontation remained hidden and sharp. Kate entered the hall with her usual grace, her gown flowing elegantly, her smile carefully polished for the watching world. To the guests, she appeared flawless, yet William, walking close by her side, noticed the faint stiffness in her step. His expression remained calm but guarded. The memory of Camilla's words replayed in his mind, a constant echo he could not shake. The guests saw unity. He saw fragility. The event began smoothly. Speeches were delivered, toasts raised, and dignitaries applauded with admiration. Kate moved from group to group with her familiar warmth, shaking hands, exchanging words, radiating sincerity. Yet beneath her calm exterior, her body betrayed her. Her head throbbed, her heart raced, and exhaustion pressed heavily upon her. For weeks she had hidden the toll of endless duties, but now her strength faltered. It happened suddenly. One moment she held a glass, smiling as she listened to a guest. The next, her hand slipped, her body swayed, and she collapsed onto the polished floor. Gasps echoed through the room as silence swept across the hall. The scene froze for a heartbeat before chaos erupted. Guests rushed forward, staff hurried to her side, and William dropped beside her, his face stripped of composure. For years he had hidden emotion, but now fear was written plainly across his features. Camilla, standing only steps away, appeared startled, but quickly regained composure. Her expression betrayed a flicker of shock, yet she remained still. To some, her face showed concern. To others, it looked cold, detached, and unrepentant. Whispers rippled through the hall. Guests recalled rumors of tension, linking the collapse to family strife. Medical staff rushed in, kneeling at Kate's side as William clutched her hand. His voice broke as he called her name, urging her to wake. The sight of the heir to the throne, undone with emotion, unsettled everyone present. Within minutes, staff cleared space and Kate was lifted onto a stretcher. Guests were ushered out quickly, the celebration shattered. Outside, cameras caught glimpses of the scene. Headlines blazed across the globe. The Princess of Wales had collapsed during a royal event. Inside the hall, Camilla stood apart, her hands clasped tightly. She offered no words, no gesture of comfort. Her silence deepened suspicion. To her supporters, it was dignity. To her critics, it was evidence of something colder. The collapse sent shockwaves beyond the palace. Supporters flooded social media with prayers. Critics demanded answers about the pressures placed upon Kate. For William, it marked the breaking point. For Camilla, it became an indelible image, the world watching, the crown glimmering, and compassion absent. The collapse was more than a stumble. It was the moment the storm finally broke. William breaks his silence. The palace had always thrived on silence. Scandals were managed quietly, conflicts smoothed over with carefully worded statements. Yet after Kate's collapse, silence was no longer possible. The world demanded answers, and for once William knew that his heart could not be hidden behind protocol. He had remained still through whispers, endured rumors, and accepted the pressure of royal duty. But watching Kate carried from the hall had broken something inside him. Silence had failed her, and silence could not continue. The days that followed were filled with chaos. Doctors issued vague reports about exhaustion, while courtiers scrambled to control headlines. The king urged calm, advising William to wait, to let official channels manage the narrative. Camilla appeared at engagements with her usual composure, speaking of resilience and unity. Yet William saw through it. He knew the truth of what Kate had endured, and he knew the palace would never admit it. When William finally spoke, it was not behind closed doors, but on a televised address watched across the world. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried the weight of sleepless nights. He began with gratitude for the public's concern and prayers for Kate, thanking the doctors and staff, but quickly his tone shifted. He spoke of the burden Kate had carried, the relentless pressure, the unspoken expectations that had driven her to exhaustion. His words cut through the polished image of perfection the monarchy had worked tirelessly to project. He did not name Camilla, yet his meaning was unmistakable. He spoke of sharp words that wounded more than they guided, of traditions twisted into weapons, of how even within the family, Kate's compassion had been tested. His voice never rose, but the raw honesty carried more power than any outburst. For once, William was not the restrained heir. He was a husband protecting the woman he loved. The reaction was immediate. Across the country, people wept, tweeted, and applauded his courage. Headlines hailed his honesty, calling it the most human moment the monarchy had shown in years. Some called him reckless for challenging protocol. Others praised him for breaking the silence that had long shielded cruelty. The divide was sharp, but William no longer cared. Inside the palace, the atmosphere turned electric. Advisors exchanged frantic calls. The king, though sympathetic, feared the damage to the crown. Camilla's composure faltered in private. She had expected William to remain bound by duty, not to challenge the silence. Now her authority felt threatened, her position shaken. She knew that in William's carefully chosen words, the world had already drawn its conclusions. Kate, still recovering, watched from her private chambers, her eyes filled with tears as she listened. She had carried so much alone, believing silence was her only shield. But William's voice had lifted that burden. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe, knowing he had chosen love over protocol. The monarchy had long been built on silence, but William's words cracked that foundation. The world had heard the truth, and nothing could ever return to how it was before. Camilla's counterplay. William's televised address left the nation shaken. His words of raw honesty, though carefully measured, pierced the polished veil that had shielded the monarchy for generations. While the public embraced his courage, the atmosphere inside the palace turned volatile. Though William never spoke her name, no one doubted who his pointed references were directed toward. Camilla felt the sting most of all. She understood that silence would not protect her now. A response was needed, and she prepared her counterplay with the precision of a veteran survivor. Her first move was control of appearances. Within days, Camilla attended charity functions, smiling graciously, delivering speeches on resilience, tradition, and unity. Cameras captured her poised demeanor, and sympathetic outlets framed her as a misunderstood figure caught in a storm of emotion. Photographs of her shaking hands with children and visiting hospitals were circulated widely, her every gesture designed to project warmth. To her allies, this was the Queen Consort at her best, unbending, gracious, a figure of stability. To critics, it was a performance, each word carefully staged to mask an inner hardness. Behind palace walls, her tone was far less gentle. She told confidants that William's remarks had crossed a line, threatening not only her own reputation but the stability of the crown itself. She reminded them of the years she had endured public scorn, of how she had been ridiculed and despised before finally being accepted. She insisted that no speech, however heartfelt, could erase the authority she had fought to claim. Yet beneath her conviction lay unease. She knew the tide of public opinion was powerful, and she could feel it turning against her. Her second move was to reframe herself as a victim of misunderstanding. She portrayed William's words as an outburst born of grief and exhaustion, suggesting that his judgment had been clouded. She emphasized her concern for Kate's health, carefully choosing phrases that expressed solidarity while conceding nothing. Those listening could detect the challenge beneath her tone. She would acknowledge compassion, but never guilt. The public reaction split sharply. Some praised her composure, admiring her refusal to lash out. Others, still moved by William's emotional confession, saw only cold calculation. Media outlets dissected every photograph, every gesture, searching for signs of sincerity or duplicity. Inside the palace, loyalties shifted. Some courtiers remained aligned with Camilla, believing her experience and authority secured her right to lead. Others quietly gravitated toward William and Kate, convinced their honesty represented the monarchy's future. The division deepened as Camilla doubled down on her strategy, arranging interviews with sympathetic journalists, speaking about duty and sacrifice. She reminded the world of her decades of service. Yet for all her careful maneuvering, the damage lingered. William's words had changed the narrative. No matter how gracious her appearances, the public remembered the silence during Kate's collapse. Camilla's counterplay bought her time, but it also exposed her vulnerabilities. The Queen had made her move, yet the storm showed no signs of fading. The hidden truth emerges. The weeks after William's speech and Camilla's counterplay left the monarchy suspended in uneasy quiet. Official statements spoke of unity and calm, but beneath the surface the family remained fractured. The public sensed it. Every photograph was scrutinized, every glance dissected. In this charged atmosphere, the truth behind Kate's collapse finally began to surface. Doctors had initially described the incident as exhaustion, a convenient explanation that satisfied no one. In private, however, medical reports painted a more troubling picture. Kate had been under immense strain for weeks. The combination of relentless duties, emotional pressure, and the weight of family tensions had weakened her. The heated exchange with Camilla had not directly caused her collapse, but it had been the final spark on an already fragile foundation. Her body had reached its breaking point. William read the reports in silence, guilt pressing heavily on his chest. He remembered the moments he had ignored, the weariness in Kate's eyes, the quiet fatigue in her smile. He had reassured himself she would endure as she always had, but now he realized he had failed to protect her. Sitting at her bedside, he whispered apologies, vowing never again to let silence outweigh his duty as a husband. As the truth quietly circulated among advisors, whispers shifted. No longer were people debating mere rivalries. They now spoke openly of the unbearable cost of royal expectations. Some pointed fingers at Camilla, suggesting her coldness had deepened Kate's suffering. Others argued the monarchy itself, with its rigid demands, had pushed her to the brink. Either way, the truth could not be hidden. The press soon caught wind. Leaked documents suggested Kate's collapse stemmed from stress and overwork. Headlines turned from speculation to outrage. Commentators accused the palace of failing to protect her. Talk shows asked whether the monarchy itself was sustainable. The carefully managed image of unity began to crumble under public scrutiny. Camilla found herself again at the storm's center. Though she denied any role, the timing of their confrontation was impossible to ignore. Her silence, once meant to project dignity, now looked like indifference. Some allies defended her, but many critics saw only cold calculation. William's heartfelt words gained new weight, reinforcing suspicions that Kate had been quietly suffering. When Kate was strong enough to meet privately with close staff, she spoke with disarming honesty. She admitted she had felt overwhelmed, that she had long hidden her exhaustion to meet expectations. Her vulnerability struck those present deeply, and word of her candor soon spread. Public sympathy grew even stronger, recasting her not as fragile but as courageous. For William, the revelation was painful but liberating. Painful because it confirmed what Kate had endured, liberating because the truth was now undeniable. The world understood, and he no longer had to fight shadows alone. The hidden truth had surfaced, reshaping the monarchy's story. It revealed cracks long ignored, forced difficult questions, and left no one untouched. The storm was no longer whispered, it was undeniable. The fragile peace. The revelation of Kate's struggles sent tremors through the monarchy, but with every storm comes a quiet aftershock. For a brief moment, the palace seemed to exhale. The doctors prescribed rest. William cleared his calendar, and the public demanded that Kate be given space to recover. For once, the monarchy and its people appeared united in concern. Yet beneath the surface, peace remained fragile, built not on trust, but on the exhaustion of conflict. Kate spent her days in recovery, shielded from most duties, surrounded by a small circle of loyal staff and family. The quiet suited her, though she felt guilty stepping away. She had lived so long under the weight of responsibility that rest felt unnatural. Still, William insisted she take time. He hovered protectively, his resolve hardened by guilt and love. Their bond deepened in this enforced stillness, but both knew the world outside their doors waited impatiently. Camilla moved cautiously during this period. Her public appearances were pared down, her words carefully chosen to express solidarity, yet within private chambers her frustration simmered. She had not forgotten the sting of William's veiled accusations, nor the whispers that connected her to Kate's collapse. She told advisors she had no intention of stepping back, but she recognized the danger of pressing forward too quickly. For now, restraint was her strategy. The king himself sought reconciliation. He called private family meetings, urging unity for the sake of the crown. His words carried authority but also weariness. He had watched division grow, and though he spoke of peace, he seemed unsure whether it could truly last. The monarchy had weathered scandals before, yet this felt different. This storm was not about outsiders or critics. It was about the family itself. Public sentiment swayed heavily toward Kate. Messages of support flooded the palace, flowers arrived daily, and media outlets praised her courage. The people saw her as a victim of duty's harsh weight and as a symbol of resilience. By contrast, Camilla's approval ratings dipped. She was not vilified openly, but the contrast between her polished appearances and Kate's quiet vulnerability was stark. William used the moment to recalibrate. He began to quietly advocate for lighter workloads, not only for Kate but for younger royals as a whole. His proposals were modest, framed as modern adjustments rather than rebellion, but they marked a shift. He no longer intended to let silence dictate his choices. The lessons of the collapse had changed him. Still, peace was fragile. Advisors warned that public sympathy could fade, that the press might turn on Kate once the narrative shifted. Camilla's allies reminded her that patience was a weapon, that storms passed, and that her position remained secure if she endured. For the moment, the palace presented a calm front. Smiles returned, ceremonies proceeded, and headlines softened. Yet beneath the polished surface, everyone knew the truth. The peace was temporary, delicate as glass, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. The monarchy had survived the storm, but the silence that followed carried its own danger. The uncertain future. The palace had weathered the storm, but the scars remained. Kate's recovery gave the monarchy breathing room, Yet the questions raised by her collapse lingered like shadows in every corridor. To the public, her resilience became a beacon. Crowds cheered her return to limited duties, praising her courage and dignity. But to those within the royal household, the moment marked a turning point. The future no longer felt secure, and every decision carried the weight of uncertainty. William walked with renewed determination. He had always been cautious, but now he spoke with greater conviction. He no longer believed silence could shield his family. His priority was Kate's well-being, and he made it clear that no duty would come before her health again. Yet his stance, though admirable, stirred unease. Tradition demanded sacrifice, and his insistence on change unsettled those loyal to old ways. Some courtiers whispered that William risked weakening the crown by bending too far toward modernity. Others saw in him the beginnings of a new chapter, one shaped by honesty rather than unyielding protocol. Camilla, meanwhile, remained a figure of resilience and calculation. Her public image had been bruised, but she pressed forward. She knew her role depended on endurance, and endurance had always been her strength. Yet she could not ignore the shifting tides. Kate's vulnerability had captured the world's sympathy, and William's protective stance elevated the younger couple in the eyes of many. Camilla saw her influence threatened, and while she maintained composure in public, her private thoughts revealed growing concern. The king continued his attempts at unity, but his efforts often felt like patches on a widening crack. He appealed for harmony, urging the family to look beyond rivalry, yet even he sensed the inevitability of future clashes. He recognized that the monarchy's survival depended not only on ceremony, but on the people's trust. That trust now leaned heavily on William and Kate, leaving Camilla in a precarious position. The media, relentless as ever, framed the narrative in dramatic tones. Some declared Kate the heart of the monarchy, others questioned whether the institution itself could withstand modern pressures. Headlines speculated about generational divides, rivalries, and the possibility of deeper reforms. Each photograph, each appearance, fueled endless debate. Kate, though still healing, carried herself with quiet grace. She had endured collapse, whispers, and scrutiny, yet she returned with a steadiness that inspired. Her smile was softer, her gaze more reflective, but her presence reassured the public. She no longer sought to hide her humanity. Instead, she embraced it as strength. The world responded with admiration, but also with concern. Could she withstand the demands of her role without breaking again? The uncertain future stretched before them all. Would William's call for change transform the monarchy or fracture it further? Would Camilla's resilience hold, or would shifting loyalties erode her influence? Could Kate continue to bear the weight placed upon her shoulders? No one could answer. The palace stood tall, its towers gleaming against the sky, but within its walls the future was fragile. The storm had passed, but another loomed on the horizon. The monarchy may have survived the storm, but the cracks are no longer hidden. Kate's collapse shook the palace. William's words shattered silence, and Camilla's response only deepened suspicion. The crown now stands at a crossroads, its future balanced between truth and tradition. Will William's defiance reshape the monarchy, or will Camilla's quiet power reclaim control? Can Kate's strength carry her through the weight of expectation, or will the pressure break her again? The answers remain locked behind palace doors, but one thing is certain. The next revelation will not just shake the royals, it will shake the world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The story is only beginning, and the real battle has yet to be fought.